Two of the great lessons of my life have been to get inside of myself and to get outside of myself. When I say get inside of myself, I've realized sort of consistently over my life that I have a great need for solitude. I do need to step back from things on a regular basis and have some solitude and re-energize and get new perspective. And that's not always easy to do. That creates unique challenges, you know. Deep down, I'm an introvert, and most people really struggle to accept that truth. But the people who are closest to me, the people who I live life with, personally and professionally, they know I am an introvert. I tend to be awkward around people one-on-one, especially new people. I'm awkward in a crowd, especially people I don't know. And have I learned to extrovert? Yes. You know, all introverts learn to extrovert in different ways. And all extroverts learn to introvert in different ways. But I think one of the great differentiations is, where do you get your energy from? Okay, extroverts get their energy from extroverting. Introverts get their energy from introverting. And of course, a lot of my life requires a lot of extroverting. But the extroverting tends to drain me. Whereas if I was actually an extrovert, that stuff would pump me up and fill me with energy and all that sort of thing. But what does pump me up and fill me with energy and focus me is the introverting. And so it really is very important to me to go away to a quiet place regularly, every day, and to get some time of solitude. We read over and over in the Gospels, Jesus went away to a lonely place, or Jesus went away to a quiet place, or Jesus left everyone behind and went away to be alone or to be apart. We need that. You need that. I need that. Whether we're extrovert or introvert, we all need that. The role of solitude in our lives is very, very powerful. I talk a lot about clarity and the idea of clarity and personal clarity and working out who we are and what we're here for and what matters most and what matters least. Silence is very important to helping us develop that personal clarity. But solitude is also very, very important to helping us develop that personal clarity. In the Old Testament, a lot of prophets and kings and great leaders were shepherd boys. And I often think about that because, you know, what made a shepherd boy a perfect candidate to be a great prophet or a king or a leader of a great people or a great nation? And you know, they had the two indispensable qualities of personal clarity, and they had lots of it. Had lots of silence, out there all day in the middle of nowhere, nothing but their sheep. And they had a lot of solitude. And the thing about solitude is, when we have time in solitude, we learn to hear our own voice very clearly. We learn to hear the voice of conscience very clearly. And we learn to hear the voice of God very clearly. The reality is, for most of us, there are a lot of voices in our lives. You know, when you go to make a decision, whose voice do you hear? Okay, when you go to make a decision, how many different voices do you hear around making that decision? You know, maybe you hear your mom's voice or your dad's voice or your boss's voice or your spouse's voice or your kid's voice. Maybe you hear the voice of somebody, maybe a college professor from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but you still hear their voice when you're thinking about making a certain decision. There are a lot of voices in our lives. You know, my dad has been dead more than a decade. I think about him every day. I think about him every day. I think about, okay, what would he think about this? You know, or how would he advise me in that? You know, when I sit down to write, I used to say to people, you know, when I first started writing, it was really easy. And the reason it was really easy is because you actually don't know if anyone's going to read it. You know, I'm not sure you even believe anyone's going to read it. So you're just writing. You're very free. You're very liberated. I sit down to write now. I got a lot of voices. You know, I sit down to write. I hear a lot of voices. Everything I write, I'm judging it as I go through. Oh, these people will say that, and these people will say that, and I better be really clear about that because I don't want these people to think that I'm saying this because I'm really not saying this. So I better add another sentence and explain that. And I got all these voices in my head. I'm trying to write, and so we do have a lot of voices. But at the end of the day, our lives should be lived for an audience of one, and God's that audience. And so silence and solitude are essential to getting clear about which voices matter and which voices don't. Getting clear so that even if all of those other voices are still there, and they're going to still be there, that the voices we hear clearest are our own voice, the voice of conscience, and the voice of God in our lives. And in order to get that kind of clarity, you need solitude. So create some solitude for yourself today, tomorrow. Go somewhere quiet. Go for a long walk in a quiet place, or just go somewhere solitary and just sit there for an hour and see how it affects you. See what it says to you. See how it makes you feel. And beware, resistance doesn't want you to do this. Resistance will put up a lot of barriers, a lot of obstacles to stop you from spending time in solitude, because solitude increases your ability to live purposefully and slay resistance. So I've worked out that it's important for me to get inside myself. The other lesson I've learned is that it's important for me to get outside of myself. And the only way to get outside of myself is to serve other people. And when I'm unhappy in life, mostly it's because I'm too focused on myself. When I realize I'm unhappy in life, I've developed sort of a trigger that I just have to get outside of myself. I have to do something for somebody else as quick as possible, because that it gets me out of my self-focus. It gets me out of my self-interest. It gets me focusing on somebody other than myself. And so from time to time, we do get all caught up in ourselves. And I really believe the fastest way out of that is to serve others, get outside of ourselves, focus on someone else, serve somebody else in whatever way is available, however simply and quickly you can do that. But also I think the realization is that we need this on a regular basis, because if we're not getting outside of ourselves and serving others regularly, we tend to fall into that unhappiness of self-focus more and more often, you know. And when I was a kid, one of the great sort of touchstones of my spiritual journey, one of my great spiritual mentors used to take me to visit old people in nursing homes. And wow, as an introvert, that just used to kill me. You know, we'd just walk into a stranger's room and introduce ourselves and sit down and just talk to these old people. And I was like, never comfortable, you know, doing that. We probably did that 100 times, maybe more. I never got comfortable doing that. But wow, did I learn a lot of stuff from those people in those nursing homes, you know. And my spiritual mentor, he used to ask them, last thing he used to ask them before he left, he used to point at me, used to say to the old person, this kid's only 15 years old. You know, with all your experience of life, you know, what advice would you have for a 15-year-old? And wow, the things I learned, you know, just in that one question, just in that one experience, and just perspective of life that those old people gave me was absolutely was phenomenal. And so as usual, we realized that when we serve other people, there's always unexpected ways that we benefit. So 2 lessons. Get inside yourself. Work out who you are by spending some time in solitude. Get clear about the most important voices in your life. And lesson number 2, get outside of yourself. Find ways to serve other people. Few things will bring you more joy in this life than serving other people in powerful ways and in simple ways.